this information, remember a couple weeks ago, I told you that there's some people who said that the coronavirus came from drinking Corona, and that spread everywhere in social media. And also the cure of coronavirus could be by drinking bleach, right? Another idiotic thing that's been spreading crazily in social media. But is there a direct correlation between the rise of the coronavirus and the fear that's spreading, as well as the misinformation that's happening on social media all over the world? And this matters because bad information is basically, counteracting or undermining trust that we have in governments, global health organizations, nonprofits, and actually scientists are working their asses off to counteract this the possibility of this turning into a pandemic. And the other thing that's really interesting about this disease is that this is the first time that we have been seeing a play-by-play of an epidemic unfolding. So yeah, like back in the day with SARS, remember, even though the Chinese government didn't tell anybody about it forever, that's a long time. But, you saw it on the front page of a newspaper, you heard about it on the nightly news, but now you have the possibility of seeing every single component to the development of this disease culturally on social media. And there are three main factors, according to Axios, that are driving this misinformation. Number one, people are trying to inform their friends and family without vetting the info. Like, oh my God, don't go to Japan now because it's all over the place. Like, they might hear it and they're targeting all their friends on Facebook, etc. There are actually people who are anti-Chinese, or entities who are aiming to harm the Chinese government. So the other factor is longer-term actors. This is a quote from the University of Washington professor Carl Bergstrom, says that, which basically is continuing what I just said, is that longer-term actors in the disinformation space that find this an extremely useful vehicle to undermine trust in governments, NGOs, and fact-based media, right? These include Russian and other trolls or bots that rile up anger and confusion. And so one of the things that I found to be the most interesting piece about the coronavirus culturally is that it was an op-ed in the Sunday New York Times. And the outbreak of both in terms of the spread of the virus and the misinformation and what's happening culturally around this virus goes into two cultural factors. One, there has been a history of China punishing the messenger. So we heard about how the person who actually died of the coronavirus and actually talked about it on social media was summoned by the police in Wuhan in early January and warned him not to spread the rumors. That's number one. There's a historical context of this. This is back to our main theme, which is the historical context of corona culture. The second thing is that I found interesting is SARS, which is caused by another coronavirus. That broke out in southern China in late 2002 and was covered up for more than a month. And the surgeon who first sounded the alarm was held in military detention. In 2008, there was a scandal that erupted over tainted baby formula. And after major Chinese producers were found to have added melamine, the chemical, to milk powder, 6 infants died, 54,000 people were hospitalized, and 4 years later, the whistleblower who's credited with the first exposing the problem was stabbed to death under mysterious circumstances. And then, just so you know, that this practice of punishing whoever brings embarrassing truths has been the order of the day since at least the time of Confucius. So if you think that this is really a cultural phenomenon of Mao or communist China, this was something that happened like in the 6th century BC. That's number one. The second cultural factor behind the epidemic are basically traditional beliefs, Chinese beliefs about the power of certain foods. So there's a Chinese eating culture called Jinbu, which means and this is like ancient, but a lot of Chinese citizens basically still believe in these ancient truths, which is Jinbu is really about filling the void. And the best way to replenish this void, right, to conduct Jinbu, filling the void, is to eat rare plants and wild animals. And so, if you think about it in historical, men, for example, have eaten snakes and penises of bulls or horses to increase their virility. At restaurants in major cities, bats are thought to be a great source of both the coronavirus and the SARS virus, and said to be good for restoring eyesight. Animal species are basically called the sands of nocturnal shine, and gallbladders and bile have been harvested from live bears, and it's supposedly treats jaundice, and tiger bone is basically to treat to help you with or help men with erections. So it's snake meat, basically when it's stewed, can basically cure insomnia. So there has been this cultural collective consciousness of eating wild to cure diseases, and it's obviously not a modern thing. And this author basically says that a quote, there are so many reasons to say that the current outbreak of COVID-19 has been aided by two fundamentally Chinese cultural principles, basically hampering the whistleblower, to Jinbu, which is to fill the void through wildlife. But it may be, scary to hear, and maybe even offensive in a way. But this writer of the op-ed says it's really important to investigate all the causes behind a deadly epidemic, whatever their nature, because if we don't, we will only be inviting the next one. So